People ask me, how do you try to emulate Jesus in your own life when playing him? Well, loving my enemies, praying for those who persecute me and those who may protest me is the first place that I have to start. But remember, my dear friends, we know how the story ends. God won. He won, and Christ reminds us that he is with us until the end of the age. And that said, we need to take a quick glance into the mirror of culture, which communicates a few concerns about where we are as a society that I'd like to propose a couple of thoughts about for your consideration, if I may. I want to speak particularly to those of you here that identify with Gen Z and even Gen Alpha. Give it up for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. You are in your formative years, and at a moment in time when you have the power to change culture by impacting the culture through the raising of your powerful voices and voting with your conscience and your resources. For some time now, we have been witnesses to a mounting polarity between light and dark. We've seen it manifest itself in many facets of culture. But I would like to address it as I see it as an artist in the entertainment industry. In the last several years, there's been a sharp and disturbing increase in the darkness of the imagery being used in film, television, and music. The landscape has become increasingly sinister, and in some cases, even demonic in tone, more so than in previous years, sometimes subliminal, oftentimes overt. Storylines involving the occult, witchcraft, demons, and even satanic elements are commonplace in mainstream programming. Many feature spiritually and psychologically disturbing content. And before you jump on me, no, I'm not specifically referencing a certain bespectacled wizard, though a few folks might disagree, but I'm referring to the media which is even more ominous. And I don't need to name names, you know it when you see it. The youngest of us and the most vulnerable, as well as those who are not grounded in a solid faith in God, are susceptible to the influences of these images. Media has become a portal to behavior and attitudes kids want to emulate that reject God, reject the light, and reject ultimately all those aspects of community which give life. I have observed God subtly but radically being removed from popular culture over the last couple of decades, replaced with some of the most corruptive images and ideologies for young hearts and minds. And any of us who profess any kind of faith are branded as fundamental or condemned for their beliefs with the assertions of the religiosity of a Pharisee. This is completely contrary to what it means to have a relationship with Jesus Christ and follow his teachings. If only the rest of the world actually took the time to explore what it means to follow Jesus' heart. Yes, there are always individual exceptions, unfortunately, but for the majority of believers, God is love, and true love gives way to life, not death. They say we live in a post-Christian society. I reject that. You can reject that. Change the culture by impacting the culture. Embrace that which is bigger than you. He who gave you abundant life and he who has called you by name. Do not be afraid. Mute the noise of the popular and embrace the counterculture of Christ's love and the message he offers you. The road is wide which leads to destruction, and many will enter it. So enter through the narrow gate, my dear friends, for therein lies the kingdom of heaven. social media sites rife with images of hypersexuality, predominantly young women who are, some of them who are major influencers, give the youngest of our digitally consuming generation the impression that that is how you're supposed to look, that this is how you're supposed to think and feel and act to get what you want, to get who you want, to be what you're supposed to be, as if some fantasy of aesthetic perfection is the road to happiness. It is not. Your imperfections were perfectly designed by God in heaven. As if by objectifying yourself, you will somehow be empowered. That is an empty lie of the enemy. The only way to empower yourself is to believe in the greatness of who you are, flaws and all, the gifts you bring into this world that God freely gave you, the uniqueness of your precious life, and to share them with one another. That is your legacy. That is your power. That is who you are meant to be. And that is how you will change the world. Do not let mainstream media's shallow depictions of sexuality and sexual irresponsibility deceive you into thinking that such an approach to love and relationships is without consequences. It isn't. And this is part of the systemic issue that brings us here today. I know how difficult it can be to think differently, to swim against the current, to choose life in a culture that celebrates death. You know, standing here saying these things to you now was neither the obvious career choice nor an easy decision for me, because I've never set foot in this arena before, publicly. But ultimately, I had no choice. This guy made me do it. And I'm a better man for it. A few years ago, I made a commitment to follow the promptings of the Spirit, and I stand by it, and it's why I'm here today. So I'll leave you with a few final thoughts. We are under an assault on our sense of virtue. We're enduring an affront to the innate holiness we are all imbued with and called to, and an attack on the family structure and the sacredness of the gift of life. But as ones created in the image and likeness of God, who is himself love, we are charged to be the standard bearers who defend and preserve the dignity of every human, but especially the most vulnerable, which begins with the initial stages of life and continues throughout the entire cycle, from conception through that phase we all aim to enter into, our golden years, followed by the final stages of our earthly existence. Nannies and pop-pops, every one of us, if we are called to it. How can you make a difference? Examine and expose the areas of darkness in your world, in your community, in your immediate society that need your light, and bring it everywhere you go. Change the culture by impacting the culture. Raise your voice, vote with your resources, financial, spiritual, and temporal. My commitment to impacting the culture as an artist is to pray I get to continue participating in telling stories like The Chosen and my upcoming film, Jesus Revolution, that shine a light on the struggles and successes of the human condition, stories that uphold human dignity and reveal God's truth, an infinite love for his people despite our inherent flaws. And we are all so very beautifully flawed, perhaps myself most of all. But we are not alone. He has lived as one of us, and that brings us into communion with him. By honoring the life that God gave you, by bringing your gifts to the world with love and compassion, you will be creating an environment of holiness which the most impressionable in our society will draw their examples from, and to help rewire the attitudes of society's collective consciousness, steering it back towards the preservation and value of life, restoring respect for faith and true religious tolerance, and healing some of our beloved nation's wounds in the process. while hopefully planting us more deeply within God's grace. It's been an honor to be with you here. Thank you for inviting me. God bless you.